So, sustainability is a very important topic, but how should it be discussed as it relates to the fashion industry?
There has been another horrific incident at a garment factory in Bangladesh. An 8-story building collapsed today, killing at least 145 people and injuring hundreds of others. This just months after a fire killed more than 100 people and put the unsafe working conditions at many factories in the global spotlight.
How does fashion collide with sustainability, and what can we do to change it? So let's start with this. Do you know what sustainability is? Sustainability is the balance of social, economic, and environmental needs, ensuring that neither one of these things takes precedence over the other, making it a system. Whether it be in the fashion industry or another industry, we need to make it sustainable. What effect does the fashion industry have on this balance? Let's have a closer look at the environment and keeping our nature green. The main ways that the fashion industry has a negative effect on the global environment is in the pollution of water and air, because of the industry's use of toxic chemicals that get released into the environment. Consider this: China's industry alone produces 2.5 billion tons of wastewater every year. But what about social needs? Did you know that many fashion manufacturing firms disregard social needs, especially in countries outside of the US and Europe? Did you know that firms in other countries pay less attention to working conditions and safety for their employees in order to decrease production costs and increase production speeds at the same time? These features allow outsourcing to grow globally in order to satisfy customer needs with fast and affordable service. Also, globalization and its impacts in the media and global communication cause customer needs to change immensely. What does fashion have to do with this, you ask? Through globalization, customers are immediately aware of the newest trends from the runway, and they want them at home as fast as possible to be trendy. This is fast fashion, and it has required development and production to speed up in order to satisfy the customer needs. Think about the process of placing an order, producing, packing, shipping, and delivering, and it's now done all in the matter of 24 hours. These are the customer needs of today's society. Did you know? Do you know where your clothes have been before you received them at your doorstep? How have they been produced? Who worked on them? Did you know that the U.S. alone exports 9.5 million bales of raw cotton every year? But that's not where it ends. We also import 12.6 million bales of cotton in the form of apparel every year. This contributes tremendously to the pollution of the air because of the mass quantities of items shipped by all forms of transportation, by boat, by rail, by truck, even by your own personal car. How far do you travel to visit the outlet malls or discount stores? We all love fashion, but how is it actually made? So the customers always come first. But what about the workers? They satisfy your needs, but the world disregards that it takes actual people to create these items. And the faster you want it at home, the more harsh the working conditions and the more unsafe the environment. Workers overseas put in long hours for little pay, but they rely on these jobs to provide for their families. We can still outsource to them to provide business and job opportunities. But do we need our items by tomorrow? And do we really need it that cheap? Or could we pay a little more and wait a little longer to ensure that the work put into making these items was ethically done? So let's talk about the pollution. It comes with unsafe working conditions. The faster the fashion industry becomes, the more facilities focus on production over safety and the environmental conditions. More production is done in less time, which wears out these facilities faster. These facilities are becoming worn out, and the conditions are being ignored to save money. At the same time, more clothing dye is being released into the public rivers because more fashion items are being produced in less time, and there is no regulation as to how many toxins are being released per day. So pollution is being ignored regionally and globally. How many hours do you work a week? Is it 100? In the U.S., we have regulations that prohibit our employers from demanding that kind of time from us. However, in other countries, there are no such regulations. Customer orders must be fulfilled, and money is being made, So no matter what the impact is on the workers' conditions or their life in general, they are being required to work these kinds of hours. You should also know that 3 billion people in this industry get paid less than $1.50 per week. And on average, 200 million children work in the fashion industry. Also, 8,000 chemicals are being used to turn raw materials into clothing. Also, it takes 2,700 liters of water to produce just one t-shirt. We do not contribute, you say? We are the customer. We are the people who decide how fast and how cheap we want our clothing. We also decide where we want our clothing from. It is in our power to shift our focus and pay attention to the details before shopping or purchasing. Considering only 2% of our clothes are actually made in the US, everything has to be shipped. And since the countries that produce the majority of our clothing are in Asia, it has to be shipped halfway around the world. But yet, we still want it tomorrow. Could you work in these conditions? How would you feel working 100 hours a week? So what now? What can we do to change this? Shop smart. Do your research of where to shop before you make any purchases. Also allow a reasonable amount of time for it to be shipped to you if you shop online. And when you see a t-shirt for only $5, or even less, remind yourself of all of the work and the conditions that contribute to making to this shirt. And consider paying a little bit more at a sustainable shop versus buying cheap from a place that you do not know. Consider the company H&M, who has made a promise to their customers that they will know where their clothing is being produced, and they only work with suppliers who ethically treat their workers. They also have an entire fashion line that is made from recycled clothing in their effort to close the loop. And ask yourself, what will you do with these old clothes when you don't want them anymore? How could your clothes be remade? Consider recycling. Evernew is the company that has invented a process which takes used clothing and breaks it down to the original fibers, allowing the material to be turned back into yarn, and then fabric, and eventually entirely new pieces of clothing. This whole process produces no wastes and requires no virgin materials. What impacts do your actions have? Be informed and be smart about your decisions on future clothing. Act green. Be open and aware of new ways of doing things and how they can have a positive impact on the industry and those involved.